happy welcome to the Rewilded Leader podcast. My name is Shan. I'm your podcast host, fempreneur life coach, and the rewilding expert. This is a place for female leader, fempreneurs, and women in business who wants to say goodbye to their stressful life and instead feeling fulfilled, joyful, and light on a daily basis. Through personal experiences and different point of views and evocative statement, I motivate you to discover your truth and embody it on a daily place. Hello and happy welcome to another episode in the Rewilded Leader podcast. This first episode in 2024 is something very special. But before we start today, I want you to know that I wish you, from the deepest part of my heart, all the best, all the health, and all the joy in this new year. I'm really hoping that this year you can even more manifest and embody your inner gifts and live a life that feels really good in your body, that you can feel loved, that you can feel safe, that you can feel held, and that you can feel alive. But now let's start with today's episode. In this episode I have a premiere because I have my first podcast guest ever. Sara Giita Flores and I are talking about an empowering and very grounded spiritual topic: our voice. Sara is singer-songwriter and voice coach. She put her over 10 years experience in her first book called Unleash Your Goddess Voice, and shares today in this episode a lot about what it means to express your truth as a woman leader in business as well as in personal life. Among others, we talk about how you can find out where your voice is still suppressed and how to liberate from that place. How your voice becomes a connection point between spiritual and material world, and the key to market your business in a way that feels good and fulfilling in your body. Last but not least, Sara shares with us her 4 voice archetypes from her new book and how we can implement these types in our daily life in order to feel safe while expressing our truth. You see, this is gonna be a very juicy episode today with a lot of wisdom and practical tips and also a big bunch of motivation to unleash your goddess voice. I'm so excited and so happy because today I am not alone. I am with Sara, a very beautiful and inspiring woman sitting in front of me, kind of in front of me through our laptops. And hi, Sara. Happy welcome.
Hi, Shan. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I would love to let everybody who's listening to the podcast know who you are, what you do, and I know that you mastered the game by presenting yourself. I heard that several times and I love the way you do that, so I will just let you step in front to say who you are, what do you do, and why are you here today.
Thank you. My name is Sara Giita Flores, and I am a voice empowerment coach and a writer and a speaker and singer-songwriter. And I came to this work of everything being around liberating my own voice and helping women to liberate their wild, free, authentic voices from having quite the opposite experience growing up. From a young age, learned to tamp down my voice. I was domesticated. I was taught to be pretty and polished and pleasing, and above all, to orbit around others and their needs. A lot of this experience came simply from growing up in a patriarchy. And the experience was amplified for me from 2 experiences of being sexually assaulted as a child. And I learned to expect my voice to be disrespected. I learned that if I spoke my truth, I might be demonized, told I was wrong, told I was bad. And so often I meet women who resonate with this story, even if they haven't experienced any kind of, traumatic abuse, because the pressure on women and people who identify as female is so great to fit into some kind of box that is acceptable and likable to other people. And it's interesting that looking back, feel like my voice was repressed because in the outside, it looked like it was pretty free. I sang a lot. I did, years of vocal lessons. I did a degree in vocal performance. I did theater. I had no trouble being in front of speaking in front of a group. Yeah, I'd get nervous, but there's was also a surface level because it profoundly to go deeper. And when I was 24, I started to face my childhood trauma through a therapeutic container. I was doing somatic experiencing therapy. And this was the first place where I actually let my true wild voice start to come through. And it was
Mm.
through release, things like groans. Oh, and I remember in the beginning, it would feel so good, but then there would be this big self consciousness. I'd look at my therapist like, oh no, now she's going to know how weird I am and how I don't fit in and how I'm just so out there. And I was given the gift of her love and acceptance every single time. She celebrated my raw sounds.
Mm.
She celebrated my anger, my terror, my just frustration when it came through my voice. And from that seed, that gift that she gave me of being truly heard, I realized that I couldn't keep hiding so much of myself. It takes a lot of energy to project this perfect, polished persona that I worked so hard to cultivate to the world,
Yeah.
mostly unconsciously, right?
Mm.
And so that was the beginning of my journey of finding my authentic voice. A voice that was not just focused on the external and how it would be received by others, but a voice that was birthed from something internal. And in my book, that is now available, Unleash Your Goddess Voice, I talk about how I eventually gave a name to my authentic self expression, and it is the goddess voice. And I believe
Mm.
we all have a goddess voice within us, regardless of gender, because the goddess is all about taking the intangible into the world of form. And this is what the channel of your voice has the capacity to do. You take in this lovely deep breath, and we can't see the air yet. When our vocal cords vibrate, we turn it into sound, something that we can perceive with the five senses.
Mm.
So I've been a vocal coach for 16 years now. The first 10 years were very much focused on teaching singing in a very traditional way. And for the past 6 years, I've started working with speakers as well and integrating all of my personal development and healing work and techniques to help women find their confidence and power.
Wow, that was amazing. There was already so much insight in this first few minutes. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. The first thing I want to say is just to celebrate how you share from a place of vulnerability. I mean, you tell us your story And I'm sure that this is not only easy in the first times to speak about things like that. So I really appreciate your open heart, your open mind, and also your vulnerability to share that, because as you already said, we can relate. I mean, even though, um, as you said, there are women who haven't had this, yeah, strong kind of experience like you may have them. There is a certain point we can understand. I'm pretty sure a lot of listeners can also understand. Do you have maybe an explanation why this is like that? Is it because we never learned it in a way, or we do you have an idea on that? Where this is coming
Yeah,
from?
that's yes, that's a great question. So, where is it coming from that women are taught to tamp down their voices? So, I would say there's quite a few different pieces. So, one is that humans do seem to have this intrinsic need to fit in with the tribe,
Mm-hmm.
that it very much seems part of our nature that we sense we have greater safety in numbers if we are going along
Mm-hmm.
with the group. So, as far as I have observed, that does seem to be a constant thing throughout history, this kind of group mindedness, as well as um, needing to fit in with the tribe. And yet, we're in this phase now where there is so much upheaval, but there is also a birthing of our connection to our own power without anyone having greater authority on what's best for us. So I am the authority on what is best for me, and you are the authority on what is best for you. And this to me is an evolutionary change. So another piece, patriarchy. So if you consider that 100 years ago, your grandmother, your great grandmother, maybe your great great grandmother, compared to, depending on your age, if her husband beat her, he had the legal right to do that, because that is how strong the need was to tamp down women's power, to vilify women's power, to keep them estranged from it in order to maintain this unnatural system of only half the population being connected with their power. So, you know, many women might think, well, yeah, that was a long time ago. Um, what does that have to do with me now? Well, if you look around in mainstream media, there's still so many messages that our worth comes from how we look and our relationships to men. There's so many messages that our value comes from what we give to others, like our roles in terms of pleasing others, in terms of taking care of others. And, this is something that I've thought about a lot because I am a mother. I spend a lot of time taking care of other people, but how do I do that from a place of feeling empowered
Mm-hmm.
and centered in my own choice? Like I chose this. So, what I'm saying with all of this is the reason that we are often get the message that we need to tamp down our voices because we see other women being vilified for using their voices. We see them taken down, especially if that woman looks like you. Many people have identities that are more marginalized than mine, whether they're, people of color. We all have different levels of ability as well. And when you see someone who looks like you being taken down publicly for speaking the truth, it sends a subconscious message like, that's what you're risking.
Mm-hmm.
You're risking everybody being against you. Now, in practical terms, when we speak up from a place of power, by and large, we can expect our voices to be received and valued and respected. However, that doesn't take away the fact that there are times and situations when we might receive disrespect in return. And that can feel profoundly unsafe on the body level. So much of my work is helping women to feel that sense of safety in their nervous system, in their bodies. And you get there by working incrementally, right? Like I share my story of overcoming sexual trauma, but in the beginning, I could barely speak it to my therapist. It was like so closed down over here. So I started with safe little containers. And then I shared it with a few people who were close to me. Some reacted helpfully, some didn't. And then I started sharing just one little piece publicly. And that first bit was hard. It was hard to start sharing my story publicly. And now I feel such a grounded resilience around it. Like, yeah, this is a part of me that I don't judge. And so I don't worry that other people will judge me for it either.
Mm. Wow, that is such a big message. So I want just to keep that in mind for everybody's listening. So very important when you start going on the journey to find your voice, do little steps, right? So really
Mhm.
go step by
Yes.
step and yeah, be aware what is hidden actually behind the fact that you're not doing it now. It's because there might be a trauma inside of you. And so
Yeah.
being aware of that also helps us to do little steps and to already be mindful about these little steps and also grateful that we've done them and not yet judging us to, okay, now you have to speak up in front of 20 or 30 or even more
Mhm.
people publicly what you feel, what you think, what you experienced. So that's
Yes.
very, very cool to mention. Thank you. And at the same time, there was another thing coming into my mind. You said that finding your own voice also has a lot to do with personal growth, right?
Oh, yes.
So this
Yes.
goes like hand in hand together. And you also spoke a lot about society, being a man, being a woman, among men.
Mhm.
And is there also a big part about that feminine and masculine energy, about the balance of the both of them, or much more about personal growth? What would you say? How do you feel
Mm,
about that?
yes. This is a really juicy question. So, personally, I feel that we all have our own just right balance of masculine and feminine energy. And it also fluctuates depending on the season of our life, even I'm still a menstruating human. So when I'm in certain parts of my cycle that need to rest and come in and be more in the flow is really strong. In terms of finding your authentic voice, I feel like it's really a dance that both the masculine and the feminine energy are part of it because how I experience feminine energy and flow and the yin is that it's very much creating this space for something to arise. So, if you're speaking, maybe if you're writing a blog post, maybe if you are preparing yourself for a sales call with a potential client, if you get into this flow state, the inviting the yin, the feminine to really take over, to bring exactly what is needed, then there's the space for possibly, if it's right, something to well up. And then that is what wants to be expressed. That's what wants to come through your voice or through your hand to your pen. This is what wants to come through when you speak as a leader. And the act of turning the breath into sound, you are pushing the airwaves what sound actually does is it creates these pulsations. It's pushing the airwaves. So there's a masculine energy to that, like it's been brought into the world of form. So certainly we can speak from a more masculine place where we're not really sensing what are the deep messages, what is intuitively wanting to be expressed. We can just talk from the mind. We can repeat a lot of stuff we've heard before. We can be very much in this intellectual space that would be a more masculine energy in my mind for speaking. And yet what to me is the most effective is if there's this harmony, right? That there's that internal sensing. What wants to be expressed right now? What would be in service of my highest good and the highest good of the people who I serve? Please let it be expressed through me.
Mm.
So both of them get to dance together, the masculine and feminine energies.
That's a beautiful picture. I can really, also when I hear and see you talking, I can really feel that harmony when there is creation coming up with that connection also with the feminine, but also then bring into material in the material world, speaking and pushing that out into the world. That's so beautiful. Very important just to be clear when it comes to voice. When we speak about voice, what is meant by this voice? Is it only the sound that our voice makes? Is it also the words that we choose? Or is it also much more and it's every kind of expression?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. I often think of voice as being synonymous with self expression.
Mm.
So there is the element of we have a physical mechanism called the larynx. And when we send air outward and our brain thinks, okay, I'm going to make sound now, the vocal cords vibrate really, really fast. And then our mouth and our lips and our tongue and our teeth, we create words that have meaning. So there is definitely that more physiological, concrete meaning of voice. So I am including that. But
Mm.
I also think of finding your voice or your authentic voice as your self expression. So that's often why I use the term goddess voice, because it's your unique, divinely inspired channel for self expression. It's like a steady stream that comes
Mm.
out and wants to interact with the worlds of form.
Okay, you already shared a little bit about that, but I would like to dive a little bit deeper into that question of how did you find your voice and how does that relate to a rewilding journey?
So, as I shared, the first moment of finding my voice happened in my therapist's office. And it came from the moment of feeling like my body really wants to groan right now. It wants to just go, oh. And I let that come through and I was celebrated for it, which was such a gift. And yes, there was definitely a journey in between that moment and where I'm at now. And in so many ways, this is the rewilding journey because freeing your voice is coming out of the boxes. It's coming out of all these expectations that are placed upon us for how we should sound, what we should do, what we should say, what's socially acceptable, what will be impactful but not rile up too many people. And it was very much the journey of unlearning people pleasing, which may be a lifelong journey to unlearn the desire to please others. The main tool that I would say helped me on this journey was learning to embrace my wholeness, learning to
Mm.
embrace all parts of myself. And one of the most impactful moments came from learning to heal my inner child, which I had a lot of resistance to the term inner child. It just kind of made me go, oh, I don't know. Those people are crazy who talk about it. And yet, when I was in my therapist's office revisiting the trauma, I just saw this image of myself as a scared little child. huddled in the corner. I call her little Sara. And she was just yearning for me to give her some love. And by asking her what she needed over and over again, and promising to show up over and over again. And as more parts of myself emerged that I had pushed into the shadows, I had to do more digging deep and saying, yes, I can love you too. Even though you did this thing that was so embarrassing, I love you too. And you're a part of me and you belong.
Mm.
Because when we can embrace our wholeness on deeper levels, that is how we speak up authentically. If we have a lot of parts of ourselves that we are judging, we're going to be scared to show those parts to the world. We're going to say, what will they say if they knew about my psychic visions? Or
Mm.
what will they say if they know about this horrible moment when I bullied someone, right? If we can embrace these parts that we judge, then we free ourselves from needing to feel like we have to hide some parts of ourselves. So when we feel like we have to hide, we're limiting what we have access to, what we feel is safe to express. And so by embracing my own wholeness, and again, it's an ongoing journey, I have found I'm able to create the space to tap my goddess voice, to speak up authentically. And through the process, it's like coming out of all the expectations, all of the shoulds, all of the this is how you need to be, into a wild freedom.
What is one of your personal success steps, if you want to share one, that you really saw? Oh, it's so cool. I feel I have that goddess voice in myself.
Oh, yes. So something that I used to be really scared to share about myself was my spiritual side.
Mm.
I grew up with a somewhat unusual religious spiritual background with a yoga and meditation group from India. I live in the US. So, growing up in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there were not a lot of people who were into the things like vegetarianism and meditation. And, we would always have like people from India wearing orange or turbans staying at our house and things. And I just felt like so weird. I did not fit in. It was so weird. It definitely created, I mean, along with all the other things, like, you know, do what's expected of you, please others. It it encouraged me to just hide that part of myself away. And for the first 10 years of my career, I did. I was like, nobody can know that I'm a spiritual person. And it felt very unsafe. It felt like I would be rejected. I was scared of being rejected if I shared my spiritual, my woo-woo self. And it's been through this journey of embracing my wholeness that I feel like the first podcast that I spoke on, I was very open about that. That was in 2018. And that felt like a big triumph to share some of my spiritual beliefs, and just that I am a spiritual person, that I sense energy, and that it's not weird anymore to say that you meditate, but it used to be. And just to really be able to speak that in a public way was a triumph for me. It represented making a lot of progress on that journey of being seen as I am and being
Mm.
okay with
Mm. Wow. Cheers to that.
it.
Whenever we speak about expression, when we speak about voice, and we bring that into a business context, it is a lot about marketing, right?
Yes.
I know a lot of people, I see a lot of people, and sometimes I'm also part of that, who has a certain, mm, yeah, who has their challenges, let's go like that, when it comes to marketing. I don't know if this is also a thing in the US, but for us, like German Switzerland part, we always spoke about the picture of the seller for how do you call them, like cleaning products, and you have to knock on everybody's door and here is your best cleaning product and you need to buy it now. Have you ever heard about that?
Oh wow. No, that's great. We talk about used car salesmen in the US.
Cars,
Like they're
okay.
the people we don't want to be like.
Yeah, exactly. That is really it. And I had so many chats, and every woman was afraid to become that man or that person who has to sell in this way. So instead of selling or doing marketing, they stepped a little bit away and have a little, yeah, not a good energy with when it comes to selling, when it comes to marketing and speaking about their businesses. Why? Why do we get stuck and why do we struggle to free our voice in this part? Do you have an idea about that?
Yes. I very much relate to this. I've been in business for 16 years, and it's really only been in the past few years that I've embraced that I am a business owner and I market, and I've taken courses that have helped me, get a lot more on board with really the authentic side of marketing, which is speaking about your work in a way that communicates its value. So there are a lot of reasons why this can feel kind of icky and hard to navigate. The first is, like you mentioned, the cleaning product person, buy this now, the used car salesperson who's always trying to undercut you or take advantage of you. So there is first and foremost just that desire to be of service and worrying that we might somehow be corrupted if we have to sell, if we have to market. So there can definitely be an unlearning of conditioning. And for me, a lot of it is observation, seeing people who do it beautifully from an authentic space, who share their offerings, whether they're coaches, whether they're running other kinds of businesses, that they're able to communicate the value and show this is how I can help you if it feels like a yes for you. So that's also a trauma informed approach to really honor the sovereignty of the person who may come across your Facebook ad, who may come across your blog post, the person who joins your mailing list, to honor their sovereignty, their power to make the decision of what is best for them. So to me, that's a foundation, is not to say, I know my coaching program will help you, but to say, this is what I can help you with. Does it feel right for you? In that scenario, you are respecting the power, decision-making capacity of this other person as a sovereign individual. So I find that reframe really important. Your job, if you're marketing, is to share your passion, your enthusiasm, and your belief in the transformation that your product or service can make. So, probably if you're listening to this podcast, you're not making a product or service that you don't believe in some way, right? Like, if you find that inner belief, it helps a lot. The other issue that I see and that I have experienced myself is taking things personally. So there's a lot of things out there with the law of attraction that would just suggest, if you have the right vibration, every single person that comes into your orbit would just be a yes. And to me, that doesn't feel really reflective of how the universe works. Of course, there is this kind of magnetism for the people who need us. And at the same time, there's so much for us to learn from the people who say, I actually feel empowered in my decision that this is a no for me. But where it gets hard for us as businesswomen is feeling like that no is about us in some way.
Mm.
Feeling like that no is saying, no, you don't get to live your purpose. Or no, you're not good enough at what you do. And I have so much compassion for it because I have felt it also. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm 100% healed from this and it may never come up again. And yet, the more that we can see that someone's yes or no to buying your product or service is about them, it's about them. It's not about you, Shan. It's not about me. It's actually about them making the decision that is right for their soul in this moment. Whether that means they're going to buy an essential oil or not,
Mm.
whether that means they're going to buy coaching or not, or a healing session or anything at all, it's about them. And the more and more we can do that, taking care of our of those tender parts inside of us and say, I got you. I
Mm.
know you're disappointed because you wanted that person to say yes. And yet, this is a great opportunity to rest in your own power and value the mutual empowerment of all beings and value the empowerment of this person who was able to tap into their no.
Yes, absolutely. That was also my thought. I mean, by doing this in that way, you also empower the person even before your coaching or your product that you're gonna sell, because you empower them in taking responsibility for their decisions, and you
Yes.
offering them all the informations and all, yeah, everything that's needed to for them to understand. But then it's not up to you if they want to buy it or not. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say, when you look at the women leaders out there, or also maybe you have some clients you have experience with, would you say that the problem is not especially to not showing up, but more about showing up but not in a detached way?
Hmm. So I think it varies person to person. I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely seen, I mean, for a long time, even though I was in business, I was in hiding and I wasn't showing up. I felt the need to hide. So I think that there are stages when the hiding is needed because we need some inner healing
Mm-hmm.
in order to feel safe enough showing up. And there are times when we are showing up and the unmet needs within ourselves are really what's driving the show. So when let's see, it was in 2009 that I recorded my album. I recorded an album of music, and I had so many dreams in my head about how it was just going to take off and this was going to be the start of my music career and all these people would be downloading it on iTunes, and it was like that build it and they will come dream. And it was a really big letdown that didn't happen. you know, this is what I did for marketing. I knew nothing about marketing. Plus I was pregnant for the first time. So had a lot of other things on my mind. So my marketing was email about 40 people who I knew, most of whom were not my ideal audience, not the people who would most resonate with my music, and send them the link where to buy it once. And a few people bought it, and a few people bought it in person and, gave me some good compliments. And that was that. Now, years later, when I started to build a music career and I was giving concerts, I did end up selling more copies of that CD and having more streaming listeners also. But it was quite devastating that I expected it would magically spread, and it didn't. And The lesson and the thread is that yes, it hurts. And also looking back, there was so much of a desire to feel loved. Like, if this takes off and people love the songs that I wrote, then I imagined I would finally feel loved deep inside. So, of course, I'm attached to the outcome, right? If there's this whole unconscious thing, like maybe I'll finally feel whole
Yeah.
if I, if this dream happens, then you're really disappointed if it doesn't happen. And often, if it does happen, you still feel kind of like, oh, that wasn't the I'll be happy when I get there moment that I imagined it to be.
Mm.
Well, of course we're attached because there's these parts inside that just need some love, that just need
Mm.
to feel whole and valued in yourself. So to me, it's not like, oh, well, sales is hard because you're attached. It's more like sales is hard because you're human
Mm.
and you're on this healing journey of personal growth. And there are parts inside that really need to know they are whole no matter how many copies you sell,
Mm.
no matter who says yes and who says no. You are whole and you are enough. And for so many people, that's the journey of marketing and sales,
Mm.
is knowing that through business successes and business failures, you are enough and you can give yourself everything you need inside. And also have, supportive people in your circle who can also help you feel that reassurance, but that
Mm.
it's reliable, right? Because if you're launching a new webinar, even if you have a big mailing list, you really don't know how well it will be received, right? And so if you're placing your need for love in that, then it's not reliable. So how can you set it up so that the love and the emotional needs are fulfilled in a reliable way?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that because I feel that this is a very important message and that business often gets the projection field where we project, yeah, the feeling of being loved. Because, yeah, I mean, money is always, is as well this projecting field of love, of how we relate to ourselves, to the world, and also to the feeling of how worthy we are. Because, yeah, money is the way how we count how worthy
Mm,
we are, or how we define how worthy we are.
yeah.
So that's very easily, yeah, projected on a business. And if we are worthy, then business will go, or when business goes, then we will feel worthy. But yeah, that is actually what I felt with detachment, like detect, like how can I say, create two spaces. One is the business space, and it's amazing to work on that, to do these things. But there is at the same time the space of inner healing, of healing your inner child, the same as you said, and to also work on that and being aware that these two parts are always interconnected. But business is not how you will gain more self-worth.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Hmm. What a beautiful journey, huh? You already mentioned that you had during your personal journey finding your voice support. So you had therapists and somatic informed people, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
This is so powerful, and that's why I want to mention it once again, or underline, highlight this part, because very often I think we tend to feel alone with how we feel, or also with all these online courses or online, yeah, things that we can go and read. And yeah, just that the feeling comes up that we have to do that alone. We have to go through that by our own. And to hear your story and to see how you evolved because you had that support, because you go out and search for somebody who's helping you and cheering on you.
Yeah.
When you open up a little bit more, when you go a next step, and when you come closer and closer to your inner essence. This is so powerful.
Yeah, it's true. We are not meant to heal in isolation. We're not meant to build businesses or live in isolation. And the more that we can lean into support, create a network, create community, or join community, really the easier it is.
Beautiful. I know that in your new book that you already mentioned in the beginning, you're talking about the voice archetypes, right?
Yes.
I want to know all about that. So,
Yes.
what
So,
are the archetypes, and also
what?
how can they help us
Mhm.
finding them?
So, in working with clients, as well as observing in myself, there are times when we just feel the need to have energetic layers of protection. Maybe when we're setting a boundary, maybe when we're in some kind of intense healing and we feel like we need some energetic layers of protection, which I liken to having a lot of invisible layers of coats and sweaters and scarves, right? And noticing that there are times when this is healthy, and there are times when it really gets in the way of your ability to be seen, be heard, to show up, to actually publish the book or actually launch the new website, actually launch the new program, whatever it is. And I was really meditating on how I could make more tangible these observations about when we need protection, when we need to open up. And I turned to nature. So there are four voice archetypes that I talk about in the book. And the first one is the tortoise, there's the ladybug, the lioness, and the goddess. So the goddess isn't exactly from nature, she is the overarching outlier. So I'm going to start with the tortoise. So if you think about a tortoise has a really thick, heavy shell. It has energetic protection. So there are times when we feel like we really need to hide our true self. This is where I was at for much of my life. We come in. We come into the shell, just like a tortoise tucking in its head and its legs. And this can be healthy, especially if you've had a big expansion. Maybe you just launched something and you're feeling like, wow, that was a big expansion energetically. Maybe you need a moment to just go into your bed for 10 minutes and curl up under some covers. That's tortoise energy, and that's nourishing. And yet, if you're stuck here, it feels so confining. Carrying around this big, heavy shell, all these walls and layers of protection so people can't see the real me, it can get exhausting. So, with all the archetypes, there are times when they feel really healthy and times when not so much. So, if we feel ready to grow beyond this need for a really heavy shell, we might identify with the energy of the ladybug. So the ladybug has these cute wing cases called elytra. Kids who play Minecraft know what elytra are. Little side note there. So the elytra are the red or yellow or orange wing casings with the black dots. And the thing is, they can swing open at a moment's notice. And then these glorious, thin but strong wings come out, and the ladybug can go exactly where it needs to go. So it's like you can have the shell, and then at a moment's notice, whoo, here I am, world. I'm opening up the wings and symbolically opening up to be seen. So the ladybug is kind of an in between. It has that sense of protection, like, okay, I can put my shell up, I don't have to show my true self all the time if I don't need to. But at the moment, at a moment's notice, you can say, oh, it actually feels really good to just open up. And if you imagine your energy field as if it had a door in front of you, it's like you just, or even double doors, you just whoosh, open up. And it's like, oh, now I can be seen. Here I am, world. And then maybe when the curtain closes, stage lights go down, put that cover, those wing casings on again. So I felt the ladybug energy a lot when I was first building a music career in 2017 and 2018 because it felt like a big expansion every time I scheduled a concert for myself and was on stage. And there were times when I did need that sense of a protective shell. But the thing with ladybugs is they're really easy to overlook. They're small. And when you're in that ladybug energy, like sometimes I show myself, sometimes I don't, it can feel like, yeah, you're easily ignored. You're not quite in that power that you know is possible for you. And so there are times when you might want to embody the energy of the lioness. Now, the lioness does not need any kind of energetic shell. She does not need all those sweaters and blankets and scarves over her because she walks around knowing nobody's going to mess with her. She doesn't need protection because she is so in her confidence, so in her sovereignty. And I have had moments of being on stage where I felt so rooted in this confidence, feeling like I am energetically filled up from the inside out. And that is the defining element of the lioness energy, is feeling like you are so filled up with divine energy, with confidence, with strength, that you don't need protection. You are just in this rooted, allowing yourself to be seen. I don't care what they're going to say. And the lioness feels really empowering. There are ways, though, that it can feel isolating, just like you mentioned that getting support. Sometimes the lioness can feel a little bit like, I have to fill up from the inside and be so confident in myself. And while these archetypes are not linear because we can revisit them or we can visit them at any point in our journey, as I mentioned, if you have a big launch, it might be really healthy to go into tortoise energy for a little bit. Just hibernate, just come in for a little bit, as long as it's conscious, right? So that you know you can come out easily. However, I do see the goddess archetype, which is the last one, as a little bit kind of the most evolved one. So the primary energetic feature of the goddess archetype is opening yourself as a conduit. What you're opening as a conduit to is the divine in any form, any name, any shape that you choose. But the goddess archetype is very expansive because it's creating so much space in your field and inviting the goddess or God or however you relate to it to come in, to speak through your voice, to write through your hand, to share exactly the wisdom that is needed. And there's really an element of trust that comes when you invite in the goddess archetype into your life. There's a trust that things might not go exactly the way that your ego thinks they should. Or they might not go at all the way that your ego thinks they should. But there is a trust that you will show up exactly as you need to. There's not need for energetic shells, for energetic protection, because that surrender and that flow of divine energy coming through creates its own sense of safety.
Wow, beautiful. I think with every archetype I could identify a little bit. So very, I love how you choose them.
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah.
So would you say that you on a personal level, you are now the most part of the day in the goddess voice, or are you like as you said, constantly switching a little bit between whatever you need of these archetypes?
Yes, I would say that it is a dance.
Mm.
I have a lot more moments of feeling in the divine flow where I do feel like I am able to open myself as a conduit. But do I live my life from that place? No, not not always. I get triggered. I get there are times when I'm speaking to kids and I just need to say this, this, this. There are also times when I rarely even need to do it with my voice, but sometimes with my body that I need to really call upon the lioness energy. There's a person in my life who's very critical. And when I sense things might be going that way a little bit, I really tap into that feeling of like imagining a lioness in my mind, imagining myself feeling strong and confident and that my energy is like filling up. There are no holes where this person's confidence I'm sorry, where this person's criticisms can come through.
Mm.
And when I'm embodying that energy, the person really doesn't criticize me very much anymore. So there are times when I feel like I need to call upon that lioness energy. There are times with boundary setting when you really need that, rather than saying, oh, I am the open space for love to come through. There are times when you need to say, I am a lioness. I am strong and you do not want to mess with me. And there are also times when I feel like I need that ladybug energy, especially with the edges, the new things. I feel like with this book launch, there have been times when I've been kind of in that, oh, I am so excited to share my message with the world. And other times when I feel a little fear because it's something new. This is my first book. This is a new level of being seen and heard. So there's definitely opportunity to go throughout it all. And I imagine that as my life goes on, I will be in the goddess archetype energy more, but we'll see.
I think often we tend to think that if the first archetype is the lowest vibration one, and we have to go that
Mm-hmm.
stage up
Right.
until the goddess because that's the big thing. But I really love how you look at these archetypes in a form of a dance. That, yeah, for sure, there is that aim that we are more time in this goddess voice because we are all leaders. We want to share our message, we want to help others, we want to guide others, but for that we have to show up in the most authentic way. But knowing that there is nothing bad about having these moments in the lioness energy or in the ladybug energy whenever we need them, but learning to guide ourselves through these archetypes more consciously than unconsciously just be in that covered by a million of scarves and coats.
Yes.
Mm, beautiful.
Yes, exactly. It's circular.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And they're also so much about acceptance, right? Uh,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
beautiful. So, for everyone out there, they are now thinking, oh my god, I never thought about working with my voice. How can I do that? So, maybe it will be so cool if you can just share one thing that you think that every woman out there should do, maybe daily or weekly or whatsoever, that you would, when you by providing this task or this idea, the world would get better when everyone listening to that is doing that. Ooh,
Oh.
that's a big one.
So there are a lot of practices that I share in the book.
Mm,
And one that I think would be most in alignment for many people is called open channel breathing. So, as I've mentioned, the breath is the foundation of your voice. It's what creates the sound. The flow of breath is what creates the sound, or it's what allows the sound to happen. So, I like to think of open channel breathing as a practice of receiving first and then giving.
Mm.
So you breathe in, imagining your lungs filling with this nourishing white light. When you breathe in, this is the most primal act of receiving nourishment. And to any degree that feels safe or doable right now, you can really tune into the feeling of receiving nourishment every time you breathe in. And as you breathe out, you send your sound out, either speaking or singing, with an intention. At times, that intention might be really specific. I generally default to send it out as love because I feel like that is the vibration and the energy that we most need. It is what we're made of. We're made of universal love. And because the breath is so connected to the heart chakra, which is also the center for love. So if when you wake up in the morning, you take a deep breath in, you notice the muscle of your diaphragm moving downward. This is the muscle that goes at the bottom of your ribs. And when it moves downward into a less domed shape, then it creates this vacuum and the air just rushes in. You receive exactly the nourishment you need. You feel filled up, you feel refreshed. And then you can speak out loud or sing, send it out as love. Maybe you are sending the love to yourself. Maybe you're sending it to the world in general. Maybe you're sending it to someone specific. You breathe in nourishment, send it out as love. That intention is truly powerful because the vibrations of your voice touch humanity and the world in so many ways that we do not see or understand.
Mm.
And when you share that loving intention, you are creating a change in the world. Even if it seems imperceptible, there is a change, there is an impact of your voice.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate that you say you have more practical exercises in your book, because I really like that not only having the knowledge and gaining ideas of how this could possibly work, but having these action steps that you can do afterwards. So thanks for sharing about that. And yeah, tell us more about that amazing book. I mean, you have practical things. What else is inside of this book?
Yes. So the book is called Unleash Your Goddess Voice. Build your resilience to speak up, sing out, and spread your message.
Mm.
And the book is for empathic women, entrepreneurs, writers, creatives who feel that they have a message to share, who have empowered themselves in many ways, and yet at times still find these habits of maybe people pleasing, maybe dimming their voice, maybe feeling scared for that next level expansion in your business. And the book is a love letter of healing. It's about my own journey, my client's journeys, as well as a lot of practical steps, practices, advice that can help you increase your internal sense of safety and your connection to your voice so that channel for divinely inspired self-expression can become more open. You can express yourself with more ease and more of that grounded sense of this is safe enough in my body. And that's why I can expand to my next level.
Mm. That's so powerful. I really love it. So for everybody who's interested now in having a look and do an empowered decision if you want to buy that
Yeah.
book or not, you're gonna find the links in the show notes, and there is also the link to Sara's website. What else are the things that you're offering? I mean, you said that you are for so many years in business, and what is the way that today we can work with you?
Yes. So I offer one-on-one coaching as a vocal coach. I go beyond traditional vocal coaching because I also work a lot with facilitating healing around the fears, the blocks that are, making it harder for you to spread your message. So I offer one-on-one coaching, both focused on one program focused on the healing and another focused on helping people to actually book speaking gigs, clarify their message, and start spreading their message on a bigger scale. So you can find out about those at saragiita.com. You'll also see links for the book. And my name has an unusual spelling. It has two I's in Gita, just like you have two eyes on your face. So it's SARAGIITA.com.
Amazing. I'm gonna put that link also in the show notes so it's
Yes,
easy to find you.
absolutely.
Is there anything that you would like to share now with the world, with every single woman listening to that podcast?
Yes. I would love for you to know, not just intellectually, but to feel in your body that your voice matters. Your presence matters. The way that you show up, your healing intentions, your desire to serve, all of this is creating an impact, even if you are not seeing that impact right now, even when it feels like no one is listening. Your voice matters and you matter.
Goosebumps. Sara, thank you so much for sharing so much love, so much wisdom, and so much of your personal journey and experiences in today's episode.
Thank you, Shan. Goodbye, everyone.
I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and you take a lot of valuable insights with you for your path to speak more your authentic voice, your goddess voice, and you can speak from a place of love and liberation. If you enjoyed this episode, then follow this podcast to never miss out another episode. And if you like it, then please rate this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and tell it to a friend. I'm always happy when I hear that somebody shared this episode with another person, and how this podcast and all the wisdom and insight in it can spread, that we all can benefit in growing together. I wish you a very beautiful time. I see you next time, and don't forget, let's rewild, honey.